Today's podcast and tomorrow's podcast is a little bit different. Julie and I felt motivated to talk about one of our favorite topics that's near and dear to our heart, which is unrepresented owners, aka FSBOs. And we did this on the fly. We had no notes, which made Julie shudder, right?
Yeah.
So we just finished recording over an hour. And what we're going to do is split this into two different podcasts. So you can listen to this you listen today and listen tomorrow. So if the structure of the podcast today seems a little different, seems a little bit more free-flowing, it's because Julie and I were riffing off each other, taking some trips down memory lane, telling you a lot of stories, giving you the scripts and objection handlers and the psychology behind for sale by owners. But please deep dive into this, learn all that you can, and listen to today's podcast and listen to tomorrow's podcast as well. Welcome back. Julie and I are going to be deep diving into all things for sale by owner. We're really going to be focusing on for sale by owners, really the psychology behind attracting for sale by owners to be your listings. We're going to talk about why they think about going FSBO. Julie has got a bunch of statistics ready to share with you so that you will be further, I think, motivated to pursue for sale by owners. All things FSBO. That's what today's podcast is going to be about. Now, unlike our normal podcast, Julie and I have absolutely no script. We have no outline. And so we're going to be running this podcast today as a bit of a conversation. So if we kind of bounce back and forth, forgive us. But Julie and I were talking this morning when we were going on our walk about like doing this very podcast, and she wanted me to write an outline. I told her I didn't want to write an outline. I wanted to run it like I would have ran a high-level coaching call with someone who is interested in learning about for sale by owners. So I'm going to treat all of you, dear listeners, as if you're, coaching clients paying me $2,500 a month. And so this is going to be an introductory call. Oh, Julie's got all the right words today. What was the other word I couldn't say this morning? Monterey?
I think so. Yeah.
We were doing an Instagram video summarizing our week's worth of workouts. If you guys aren't following us on Instagram, it's Tim and Julie Harris. And sometimes I trip over words like and it's like not because I have early stage dementia. Well, it might be that.
Could be.
It's just because my ass has just gotten kicked by all the kettlebells. But I digress, dear listener. So let's start out by talking about why you should be listening to Julie and I as pertains to for sale by owners.
Especially after that, yeah.
Yeah. So let's start out there. Well, so a quick review for some of you. Julie and I have been in the real estate business since we are in our early 20s. Now, I'm not allowed to say Julie's age, but I will share this with you. Our combined age is 107, and we met in high school, and I'm a year older than Julie. So for those of you who are math wizards, you can do the math backwards.
Yeah.
All right. So we did our first real estate transaction when I was 23 and Julie was 22, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. And it was, what was the address? 280 East Jeffrey.
Yes.
I remember. Okay. So in our first full year selling real estate, we sold over 100 homes. With pendings, we sold like 103 or 104 homes. And we did most of those. It was a 50-50 listings and buyers. Not exactly, but it was a little bit heavy on the buyer side, but you get the gist of it. And what we did is we did not have a center of influence. We didn't have a past client list. We did not have a corporate relationship. There was no Zillow. Oh, by the way, dare I say, there was no internet. Internet didn't actually come online until 1996. So we were doing this as, boots on the ground, real work, grinding it out as you possibly could. And it was fantastic.
There was no buying leads back then either. There was none of that.
Right.
It was all, if it's meant to be, it's up to me type of work.
Yep.
And I have to say that a lot of those first deals, and going forward, but especially the first deals, were indeed for sale by owners.
Well, all of them. If you go back, and I remember this very well, like it was yesterday, because it doesn't certainly feel like it was almost 30 years
Sure.
ago. But the reality of it is what we were doing is the same exact thing that we've coached agents for 20 plus years to do. Exact same thing we're hoping you're going to have the motivation to do after you listen to today's podcast. And here's the gist of it. Again, where did all of our transactions come from? They came from us directly soliciting, mostly for sale by owners, then expireds, and a lot of those for sale by owners then becoming buyers for us, right? So one listing equaled at least 2 transactions. When we sold the listing, they would buy a house from us. And then sometimes, well, frankly, quite frequently, we were picking up more buyers from those listings. And that is the magic of having listings versus if you're on the buyer side of the transaction. Generally speaking, you're not going to get automatic additional deal flow other than selling that buyer a house. Past referrals down the road are not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you take a listing and you work it like we coach you to work it in our coaching business, then you're going to understand the fact that, if you want true leverage in real estate, you have to do it through listings. Now, we went on to sell real estate for about 10 years, usually selling between 100 and 200 homes per year. So as I pass all this information along to you, I want you to understand that we've been there, done that. But that's not the reason you should listen to us as pertains to for sale by owners, expires, and generally speaking, just building your entire real estate business. Because compared to what we had to do after we decided to get full-time into coaching, the real estate was easy. Being a real estate coach and coaching at the level in which Julie and I have for as long as we have was a billion times harder than ever actually having sold real estate at a high level like we did. There was no comparison. Learning how to, going through the experience and the trials and tribulations and the just pure physical and emotional work of learning how to be a great coach is so much harder when you do it at a high level than learning how to be a great listing agent. There's no comparison. So you get the added benefit when you listen to today's podcast and you become a coaching client of knowing that we've been there, done that, but also knowing that we've successfully trained literally thousands of other agents to do the same thing.
That's right. So let me translate a little bit of our pattern there for those of you who are saying, well, how did talking to for sale by owners end up being 100 plus transactions your first year, right? Okay, so here was the pattern. We would door knock for the most part, sometimes call, sometimes both, for sale by owners, otherwise known as unrepresented owners. Call them what they are. They are unrepresented owners trying to sell the home on their own. So let's hover there just for a second. Why is that such a great thing? It's because it's a very obvious lead. How many of you post online? I see what you guys do on Facebook and stuff, and you say, how am I going to find a seller? What's the easiest way to get to a listing? Well, here's somebody with a for sale sign in their yard with their phone number right there.
So here's the thing. Many of you have gotten into the business in the last 15 years after Zillow and all these other companies have started to sell leads. And so without knowing it, many of you have been trained and frankly coached and mentored by other people who've only been in the business since 2007 and have only known how to actually go out and buy leads. Buying leads, by the way, just for the record, when Zillow started selling leads and some of these other platforms started selling leads, or if you knew how to generate the leads yourself, using pay-per-click and whatnot, was great about 15 years ago. And now it's just oversaturated, and a lot of you are, essentially dying on the vine because you don't know how to self-generate or be a proactive lead generator. So what I'm telling you is a lot of the folks that you're getting your advice from, a lot of the YouTube types and all these other coach trainer types, they've never actually done anything other than buy leads and build CRMs and drip campaigns. That's the reason they don't talk about a lot of the stuff that Julie and I talk about. Now, please be clear. We did, when we sold real estate, build funnels, do pay-per-click. I remember when Realtor.com started allowing agents to, when Realtor.com went live, when Zillow went live, when pay-per-click went live for Google, all of those things. Julie and I were there at the ground floor, and we were definitely doing paid lead generation along with our proactive lead generation. Definitely were building funnels. We definitely had a team, all the marketing, all the branding, all the things. But I'm here to tell you, and this truly is the bottom line. If you want to make money now, if you want to help people now, if you don't want to, suffer the ups and downs and the cash flow swings or lack of cash flow that comes from being a passive lead generator, you must learn how to be a proactive lead generator. So that's the background. That's a little history. Now we're going to jump into psychology. Julie got a little ahead of me a second ago, but she said it. A for sale by owner is nothing other than an unrepresented seller. Now, I'm going to tell you a coaching story, this is kind of a funny coaching story, but it's true. You can do it. Okay, so I'm trying to remember his name. We interviewed him. He was on the podcast, Michigan Matt. Okay, Michigan Matt.
Yeah.
I was coaching Michigan Matt. He's a listener. I did interview him. He was on the podcast about a month ago, so listen to him. So here's his story. And he did this exact thing after I told him a similar story of another coaching client and an experience that Julie and I actually also had. So when you get into the business, nowadays, if you're lucky enough to come across anybody that's going to sort of mentor you or talk to you about FSBOs, they're probably going to give you some really absolute crap information. FSBOs eat their young. FSBOs are agent haters. They'll never pay commission.
They're called by 100 agents a day. Exactly.
They're constantly being solicited. They're the meanest sons of bitches you've ever met in your life. All this shit.
And they're also always overpriced.
Right. And here's a little secret for you. Most of the people giving you the advice that's designed to make you not pursue FSBOs are the very people that are trying to not have you be competitors, because guess what? They get all their business from for sale by owners. And that's actually what happened to Julie and I. We had somebody in our RE/MAX office who is basically feeding us full of all this Mickey Mouse about for sale by owners, and about how essentially, they eat their young and all the things I said. I actually think he actually said they eat their young.
He did.
I think he asked Tim and Julie, do you have any questions? Because if you do, you better be careful working FSBOs. That's supposed to be a joke, listeners. But in any event, And we listened to him until we started realizing that he was absolutely positively killing it with FSBOs. And he may have just been, seeding us with some bad information to try to demotivate us. Now, for sale by owners are nothing other than unrepresented owners. In survey after survey with for sale by owners, and asked why they, attempted to for sale by owner their house, the number one reason why they did it is because they didn't know an agent. So I told Michigan Matt all this. Michigan Matt is over at Home Depot. And every spring, in every Home Depot and Lowe's and every small hardware store in the world, probably, there's a box of for sale by owner signs, a little FSBO kit that comes out of storage. And they leave it at the end of the aisles usually, like where the batteries are. You guys know what I'm talking about? And you'll walk past this. I want you to notice it next time. And you'll see, occasionally you'll see somebody that's, muddling around. They got their light bulbs and their screwdrivers, they're Home Depot. Maybe they're picking up some tarps or, lumber or whatever. And they're going to walk past a FSBO sign. They're going to say, well, what the hell? I'll try it. And they throw it in the cart. That is the extent to which most FSBOs think about for sale by owning their homes. And what do they do to get a price on their home? They'll go to Realtor.com or Zillow. Well, they do their own comps. They'll throw it up and they'll see what sticks. That is the end of it. So what I, have had other coaching clients do, what I suggested Michigan Matt does, is that he takes his business card and he, with a paper clips his business card to all of these for sale by owner kits that are left in this particular Home Depot or whatever it was near his house. He did this. Now, next day after, week after, I don't remember exactly, he is door knocking in a neighborhood, but only specific homes because he's matching a prospective buyer to specific homes. And these were decent sale price homes. And he had this buyer that wanted to live in this particular neighborhood, these particular style homes. And so he goes and there's not very many of them, but then one of the homes that are a good match for his prospective buyer is actually a for sale by owner. So the for sale by owner he goes, knocks on the door, asking for information using our script, which we're going to share with you today and the whole process with you today. And the for sale by owner recognized Matt's name from the business card, actually had kept it. And if I remember correctly, the business card that he had put on the for sale by owner kit at the Home Depot or whatever was in his pocket. And guess what Matt did? He sold the house to his buyer. That guy bought a house from him. And then Matt sold the listing of the buyer that was moving up to the house that he had found from his door knocking that for sale by owner. That's how freaking hard working for sale by owners are. I promise you guys, you are spending so much time, so much money on the wrong damn things. That is just the bottom line. Julie said it again. You spend all your time looking for a listing lead. How much money would you guys all pay for a listing lead? In your marketplace, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of unrepresented owners, aka for sale by owners, that are sitting there waiting for you to actually use our script and help them sell the home. They don't hate agents. They don't have any of those mental psychological issues. Well, I suppose maybe some of them do. But for the most part, they're just normal people that didn't know a real estate agent or were at Home Depot and said they thought they'd give it a try for a limited amount of time. So when you get into talking with FSBOs, here's what you're going to discover. And again, the script is very simple. You're going to discover that they didn't know another agent. You're going to discover that the number one reason that they FSBO'd is not because they wanted to save the money. It's because they had the time and they didn't know an agent. So the house has to be sold in the next, let's say, 6 months. They're going to give it a month to see if they can try it themselves. I promise you guys, very few FSBOs actually spend any more time thinking about FSBOing their home than that.
Well, that's right. And you will commonly hear that. Those of you who actually prospect for sale by owners know this. They will say literally what you just said. Well, we thought we'd try it for a couple of weekends. And here's the thing. Put yourself in the position of somebody, especially like a couple typically deciding to try it on their own. How many weekends do you think they want to actually devote to holding their own open house, to waiting for people to come through, to cleaning the house before, cleaning the house after? Almost always they lose their will to for sale by owner if it's not sold in the second weekend.
Well, let's give them some statistics because you had these that you shared with us the other day because you're writing that article for Housing Wire.
Yes, and I think they'll be surprised to hear this. When you take out the people, because there's lots of places that study this type of thing, like Altos Research,
let me ask you a
example.
question.
Yeah.
So we do this in the right order.
Right.
All right. So what percent of for sale by owners end up listing their home with the real estate broker?
I don't have that exact stat because it's related to what I was about to say, which is this. if you take out people, there's some reporting like how many homes sold without MLS, right? Okay, so if you take out the people who already had somebody like a private sale, I know you from work, you've always wanted my house, that's not the same as a for sale by owner who actually has to sell their house to a person they don't know.
Okay, so the reason that she's saying that is because when you see FSBO stats, this percent of the market sold their homes themselves, that's not really an accurate representation of how many of them actually had signs in their yard. There's a lot of in the upper end.
That's just an off-market sale,
right? In the upper end markets, there actually are quite a few off-market sales, and that's how things transfer. People know each other socially.
Okay, so when you take those out, who already had a buyer in mind, right? People are actually trying to sell. For sale by owners, unrepresented sellers are only successful actually selling their home by themselves 11% of the time.
So that means that
89% of the time,
exactly,
they fail at that.
Well, 89% of the time, to answer my question, is that they end up listing your house with a real estate broker.
That's right. Some percent they give up, but most of the time, if they have to sell, right, then they end up listing with a broker. Now, let's do the next stat.
Well, but that's interesting what you just said.
Sure.
Think about what you just said. So you said if they give up, right? So of the ones that try to sell, there's actually quite a few of them give up because they weren't that motivated to begin with.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which are not really listings that you're interested in anyway,
well,
probably.
I'll say this, though, that I disagree with you because even though they gave up because they weren't motivated at the time that they tried to FSBO, it doesn't mean that a year later the motivation isn't actually like they're building a house kind of thing.
Still a valid lead, just a little bit of a longer time.
You see it a lot with older people. They'll have 2 stories. And okay, the doctor said we should go to a 1-story. The bedrooms are upstairs. The staircase is becoming our problem. Well, we can figure it out. And then they'll muddle through for the next 18 or 24 months. And then sure enough, they need to downsize and get a single story. But that's the type of thing.
That's right.
So a listing lead is a listing. And if someone put their house for sale, put a sign in the yard, they're definitely going to want, they absolutely want to sell that house. Their motivation might change, and then we're going to get into that when we talk about pre-qualifying.
Okay, I'm glad you said that because from coaching calls that I had last week, I've got several clients who are in snowbird markets like Phoenix, like Vegas, the sand states, right? So what you just described, the for sale by owner who really does want to sell, but they're taking a break, whatever, that is a very common phenomenon when we go into the hot months of, say, Phoenix, because they know that, it's less likely to sell. That doesn't mean they don't want to sell. They're just going to try it again a few months later.
Well, that's a really good point, too, because also you have, you have Palm Springs in California. Yep. You have some of the mountainous areas in, the Rocky Mountains, the Smoky Mountains, things like that. There are seasons for things. And if someone doesn't have to sell the house, they just want to sell the house, they'll take it off the market and put it back on the market again. But let's make sure we stay on this path because we do need to talk about pre-qualifying.
Okay.
So there was another statistic you shared with us yesterday. And this one is this one's absolutely the mic drop statistic. The average for sale by owner, because you're going to ask yourself, why is a FSBO going to want to list with me? Because the average for sale by owner, when they're successful, which is only 11% of the time, and remember that's kind of a BS statistic, but there you go, because it includes the ones that weren't actually FSBO. They're just transferring to, maybe they're transferring it to their brother, their sister, their friend, right? But the average FSBO that is successful sells for how much less than had they listed a similar home with a real estate broker?
24% less.
Now, when Julie and I sold real estate, I believe the number was 12% or 14%.
That's right.
So what's really staggering to me is the differential. And you got this from NAR too, didn't you?
Yes, that one is. Several people have quoted it, but I think it originated with NAR.
That's just mind-boggling.
It is.
If you think, if the FSBOs knew, just thinking about this makes me excited to go hunt a FSBO, right? Right. But if the FSBOs knew that on average they're going to make 25% less, that would be...
Why would you do that?
No, you wouldn't.
And suffer all of the hassle factor by yourself and the liability. They do have, I don't have the exact stat on this, but they are more likely to fall out of contract. Why would that be? Well, does a for sale by owner typically have a pre-qualification script where they're checking the buyer's financing? Probably not. Are they in love with negotiating with each other over inspections? Definitely not.
So here's the process, basically. Now, where to get lists for sale by owners? Julie, any suggestions on that?
Well, RedX has them.
Right. So I want you to text the word red, R-E-D, to 47372. Text the word red, R-E-D, to 47372. And they will, in addition to they're famous for selling expired listing information, but they also sell for sale by owner data. And when you text the word red, R-E-D, to 47372, we'll text you back a link to click and you get a $150 discount. So yeah, FSBOs are definitely a gold mine. Now, the skill set necessary to get FSBOs, there's only a few things that you're going to really need to know. And hopefully you've internalized the first major point, which is most FSBOs simply are FSBOing because they don't know a real estate agent, or the ones they know they don't necessarily want to list with, whatever. They just don't have somebody. Now, number two thing I'm hoping you're internalizing is the fact that these people truly need you. I get it. You guys want to make money. You're in a business. You're trying to, pay your bills and the rest of it. But I hope you're understanding that if you drive past a for sale by owner and, you don't do anything to help them get that home sold, you're soliciting them for a listing and you're going to get paid a commission. But what you're really doing is saving them from the inevitable fate of failure and or, netting that much less on the sale of their home.
Exactly.
And Julie mentioned liability too. So there could be some trailing nastiness that came as a result of them trying to sell it themselves. You have an obligation, dare I say a moral obligation, to try to save those people from the fate of making a bad decision. That is a mindset shift that some of you should adopt, because at the end of the day, your highest and truest purpose on planet Earth, the thing that makes you frankly the happiest and the most fulfilled, is being of service to other people. And here's an opportunity for you to be of service to other people and get paid. That is what I call a win-win.
Yes, that's right. And I was just having this for sale by owner conversation with Jeannie in Phoenix, actually. And I was harassing her a little bit, reminding her that here's somebody with a for sale sign in their yard. I got a house to sell. Here's my phone number. And what is it you do for a living? You sell real estate, right? Makes sense that you would talk to each other, correct? And yet, how many agents keep on driving by, right? As a coach, I almost feel like it's malpractice not to talk to them when they so obviously need your help. And then you have as you said at the top of the podcast, it's not just helping that person. What percentage of for sale by owners also haven't purchased something yet? So there's a second transaction. Your example with your client in Michigan Matt, he had potentially a third transaction because he was bringing his wayward buyer to buy a for sale by owner. And the list goes on. And I was also pointing out to Jeannie that if we look at all of our past transactions in real estate, who were some of our most loyal ever, people who give us referrals, repeat transactions? They were for sale by owners. Why? Because for sale by owners, and I would add expireds to this, have a unique perspective on what you do for a living. That's different than somebody who's, typically just a fresh lead. If a for sale by owner has had their home on the market, done 4 or 5 open houses, they're frustrated, right? And then you treat it with professionalism. You do great home brochures, open houses, you prospect the neighbor. Maybe you even sell it yourself. That's a distinct difference between them struggling on their own. They actually appreciate what you did. And most importantly, you solved their real estate problem.
Well, and Julie said if they've done that many open houses, but the reality of it is the best time to get to a FSBO. Yes, they're going to be sort of market worn if the house has been for sale for a while, but the best time to get them is when they're thinking about it, when they first put that sign in the yard.
Yeah.
And so that's the technique that worked for all of our coaching clients to work for us, is go after the fresh ones. What a lot of people are going to train you to do is work on the older for sale by owners because they're more market worn. But the problem with the market worn FSBOs is they probably have gotten a little bit jaded about the entire experience and maybe towards our industry. In addition to that, they may have existing relationships with other agents because now they might know some other agents from having FSBO'd their house. So go after them when they're new is the takeaway from that. All right, so here's the overall process. I don't have the FSBO script directly in front of me, unfortunately. We're doing this podcast on the fly because we're about to get on a plane. But here's the gist of it. And if you want more information on our entire coaching platform, including obviously how to become a powerful listing agent, which should be priority number 1 for all of you, text the word Premier, P-R-E-M-I-E-R, Premier, P-R-E-M-I-E-R, to 47372 and become a Premier coaching client. But I'm going to give you the overview. I'll give you as much as the scripts as Julie and I can remember off the top of our heads. They're not complicated, though. I'll tell you something about scripts. Some of you have a natural abhorrence to scripts, and I get it. I did too when I sold real estate. Maybe I shouldn't admit that, but it's true. Because I didn't feel like the scripts were natural, and I thought, well, maybe I can figure out a better way to say it. All the ego things. But then when I did start adhering to a good script, then I started realizing the importance of following a proven path because it'll get you results faster without a bunch of trial and error. Learning on the job and earning on the job are two different things. We want you to earn on the job or earn while you learn. Get it? So you can learn, but make sure you're earning. Don't spend all your time learning and not earning. Otherwise, you're going to go broke. It's a bit of a tongue twister, but I think you guys get it. All right. So you've got your list of for sale by owners. You got your door knocking. And the initial conversation is very simple. You're going to call them up or you're going to door knock them. and you're going to be, you follow our usual listing process. You want to look professional. You want to look nice. You want to, absolutely positively remember, and it is true, like it or not, first impressions basically win or lose you the deal. Okay, there's that. And then we want you to let them know this. I would do this in the way I coach people to do it is call them first and say, ring, ring, hello. Hi, this is Tim Harris with eXp Realty. As you may know, we work with a lot of buyers in the area. We have a lot of folks looking in your neighborhood. And I was calling just to see if I could get some general information on the house. Now, they're going to respond one of several ways. The first way they're going to say, some of the ones are going to be a little adversarial. But remember, when someone acts adversarial to you, it's because they're nervous about the process and they're scared, not because they dislike you. So you have to be careful never to take any of the maybe some of the little slightly rough-edged comments that someone might say to you just in life in general as a representation of you. Don't internalize these things because most folks, especially for sale by owners, are going through an enormous amount of stress. Remember, in life, you guys can Google this, selling a home is one of the top 5 most stressful things, followed by having a baby, or death of a loved one. Those types of things. So FSBOing, selling a home, you don't know the backstory of what's going on in their head. There could have been all kinds of things that are, basically making their life a thorn patch at present. And yeah, you're not just selling the house maybe isn't something you even wanted to do that they have to do. So keep all these things in mind. And the way you put a nice, warm, cozy blanket on your emotions is remember and never forget. I said it a second ago and I'm going to say it again. Your highest, truest purpose on this planet is being of service to other people, even if those people are a little grumpy towards you. So I've said it. Just remember I said that to you. All right. So as you may know, I work with a lot of buyers in the area, and I was hoping I could get some information on your house to see if it's a match for any of my buyers. They might say, we have a website. You can check it out. And you say, well, great, I will. They might say, I have a brochure. You can stop by and get it. You can say, okay, great, I will. But still go back and ask some questions. Well, just as an overview, can you give me a little bit of just a download on the house, just some specifics? I see when the house was for sale before. Smart for you to look in the MLS, dear listener, and see what the history of it was prior to them selling it themselves or trying to. And you're going to see that the house maybe was for sale. They bought it 7 years ago, and you might be able to look through some of the listing pictures. And you could say, well, I've got the listing from when the home pictures from when it was sold before, and I see, are there any improvements or changes you made before I shared this, your listing with my buyer? And they're going to say, well, I updated this, we changed that, or we did nothing, most whatever the result is. You're going to write all these things down, and you're going to say, okay, good. And then say, I'd like to pop by and see the house and check it out, and with your permission, and maybe take a few pictures. I've got quite a few buyers now that you've told me about it that I think actually might be a good fit for this house. So today at 4 o'clock or today at 7 o'clock be better for you. Don't ask them if you can stop by. Don't ask them for a time. Just go right to having them choose what time. If it's, maybe you're, it's a Friday you're calling them and you want to say, is tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. good, or would 1 p.m. be better? Just choose a time, Mr. Seller. Don't make it more complicated than that. All right, they're going to choose a time or give you an alternative time. Then you show up. And now you're going to have to show up, and you're going to have to follow all the rules that we teach you in Premier Coaching as far as basically, how to present yourself for the first time to a prospective seller. I touched on it a second ago with regards to first impressions, but there's a lot of little micro steps that if you don't do correctly, will compound against you and will result in them not liking you or you getting the listing, taking your shoes off, showing up early, don't park in the driveway, all these things. They're in Premier Coaching. Text the word Premier to 47372. Now, what I want you to do is they're going to invite you in the house. I would say 90% of the time, they're going to be very friendly, very nice. And, there's not going to be a lot of tension or anything. They're going to offer to have you tour the house, or they're going to, you're going to ask to go on a tour. You want to see everything that they're proud of. You want to get to know the house because guess what? Hoping you have an actual buyer for this place, right? Or you might, as soon as you walk out, you're going to get a text, somebody looking for the exact house. Think of Michigan Matt. All right, so what you're going to do then is you're going to walk around the house. Now, this is a little bit of an art and science, what I'm about to tell you. You need to walk around the house you ask their permission first to do what I'm about to say. You can ask them if you can record the tour as you walk around. You can record them on video on your phone, which is what, frankly, you should be doing. And if they're uncomfortable with that, ask them if you can record just audio as you walk around and ask them questions. What I want you to understand is that soon as you start recording, either audio only or audio video with your iPhone, and they start seeing that little light on your phone, their whole stance and whole attitude and approach is going to change because all of a sudden they're on camera, okay? And you're going to understand the psychology of that as we walk through. Now, when you're walking through the house, I want you to ask them questions and show a great deal of interest. If you struggle with energy and enthusiasm, go to Starbucks prior to going to this appointment and absolutely jack yourself up on a triple espresso. Because again, most people choose agents based on their energy and enthusiasm. No one's going to want to list with you or buy a house through you if you have low energy enthusiasm and you're Mortimer the Mortician in your presentation. If you're wondering why you're not being successful, it's because you're not making people feel that you're enthusiastic about the house. You have to be enthusiastic about the house. You have to be excited. You have to ask questions. When they show you something or they tell you something, you need to ask questions about it. You need to show interest in what they're interested in. This is their home. They're interested in a lot of different things. Any of the things that they improved, you need to really ask about. And again, you're gathering information on the house. You're showing that you're a professional and wanting to understand things. You're not just being quiet and following them around the house like a stalker. You're understanding the psychology to all of this. Now, while you're walking around, while you're having these informal conversations, while they're demoing the new refrigerator and whatever it is, telling you how the house has a whole Wi-Fi system and they put a new sprinkler system in, and oh really, what sprinkler system? How many head sprinkler system? What's that? You have that set up on it? All these things. Then you're going to ask them questions along the way, and these are the pre-qualifying questions. Okay, you're going to ask them these things. Mr. Seller, have you guys decided, once this property sells, where are you guys going next? Ask them questions about, Mr. Seller, the condition of this property is, really fantastic. How long did it take for you to get the house in this condition? And are there any other things you want to do prior to actually having the house for sale? Anything else that's still lingering that I might be able to help you with if you don't have time to do or don't want to do, like maybe a roof project or anything? And then slip back into the conversation. So you said a second ago that ideally you want the home sold in 6 months. And it's because you're moving, You're moving a new construction home and it's supposed to be done in 6 months. You're going and getting information on what their situation is. You're asking all these inquisitive questions intermingled with questions about the house, and they will answer your pre-qualifying questions as you're walking around. And what you're looking for is their motivation. You're looking for why they have to sell. In real estate, okay, there's have to sell and there's want to sell. The have to sells, everyone write this down and internalize it. Again, very deep. This is just an overview. If you really want to become an expert at this, join Premier Coaching. Text the word Premier to 47372. We'll text you back a link to join, and you can start your coaching sessions with a Harris Certified Coach today. The first 30 days is free. All right, so you are, asking these questions, getting to know the seller's getting to know you, the seller's liking you because you've shown energy and enthusiasm, you've shown interest in something they have interested in their house. You've gone through the whole thing. Now, you're walked through the house, you've got the audio, you got the video. This is the whole process, guys. It's not more complicated than this. You know what their motivation is. The have to sell seller. Here's the definition of a have to sell seller. They have to sell the house. Pretty damn simple, right? So in other words, the option of keeping the house or renting the house is not a desirable option for them. They have a financial reason. Maybe they don't want to own 2 homes at once. Maybe there's a legal reason. Maybe they're getting relocated. Maybe they inherited the house. Maybe there's who knows what. You want to know why the hell they have to sell the house. Because the ones that list and the ones that sell are the ones that have to sell.